Who was the worst teacher you've encountered? A critical thinker teacher I had in college. She told us not to write anything negative on our essays because it would bring down her energy level. She just lectured about how to be happy by being present. I said that sometimes staying hopeful that things will change when you are currently experiencing something bad could be helpful as well, instead of focusing on now, so it depends on the situation. She then kept shaking her head before I finished my sentence and labeled me as someone who doesn't understand life. She would praise anyone who agreed with her, so she ended up turning the class into some kind of a cult group where some students just spoke up in order to be praised by the teacher while laying into anyone who disagreed. We didn't learn any critical thinking at all. She was extremely sanctimonious. In the end, everyone was speaking ill of her behind her back, even though some of them were totally a hive mind when she was around. I had a science teacher that made me sit at the front because I was getting off task with my mates at the back, fair enough, but my mates were off task as well and I did better in class than them, and they weren't moved. After a few weeks I asked him if I could move back and sit with them, and he said that if I was good and didn't have any problems in class for 2 weeks I could. So I did, and I asked him if I could move, and he says you are doing really well up the front and I don't want to ruin that, so you can stay up the front. So I'm like, well stuff you, am not doing any work now. My parents were called into school. IDK man, I'm almost with the teacher on this one. He probably moved you to the front in the first place because he saw the potential in your grades and wanted them to flourish. He could have just told you that, but still. Some professors at Harvard, white liberals, were extremely racist against me for being Asian. I'm sorry to hear that. I've got 2 Chinese sisters, and it's a shame that they live in a time where they could get rejected from college because there's too many people that look like them. It's worse when you actually manage to get in and try to prove yourself. I've done certificate courses and degrees from various prestigious places and I don't think most of them are worth the effort. It's sad really. Places in Asia are still valuing education though, so at least there's that. They say Korean and Japanese universities are nice. That's terrible. I'm sorry that happened. White liberals are an interesting lot. The virtue signaling is often inconsistent with the actions. When I was in 1st or 2nd grade I had a teacher who I'm still convinced hated me. My school had a stoplight conduct system. We had clothespins with our names on them, and you started on green for good. If you misbehaved you would move your pin down to yellow, then subsequently red, or you continued to act up. Well, this teacher would randomly say, "Zah, move your pin down." I went home with yellows or reds every day. I was a well-behaved kid. One day I'm sitting at my desk minding my own business. I believe I was reading. Teach says, "Zah, move your pin down." Well, I decided I had enough. I said something to the effect of what? Why I wasn't doing anything, I was just reading. Teach came back with "move your pin to red." I shut up and did it, but I never forgot, and I never forgave. My music teacher from kindergarten to grade 3. She would make kids cry if they got even one note wrong. She was replaced in grade 4 after several parents found their kids crying because she failed everyone for getting one note wrong. AMD threatened them that if they didn't get music comprehension done properly, that they would have to redo their current grade. Our new music teacher was super nice, and she let us pick a graduation song and even went so far as to find the sheet music and help us learn and understand new music notes and how to play them. She was honestly the greatest. I was 9 at the time. I'm 24 now and still visit her to see her classes, and her ratings are through the roof with everyone. My Spanish teacher my sophomore year of college. She'd take roll at 7:55 instead of 8 when class started. If you used a word that had not been mentioned in class but was found in your book, which was the only resource we were allowed to use on a paper, she'd assume you plagiarized it. That woman played favorites in the class. Also, we got participation grades. Though I tried to participate as much as possible, my participation grade was always as a consistent 10/15. That was the only year that I almost failed Spanish. All the other years, I made B's and A's. My middle school math teacher, the school let us have earbuds in so I would, but I was switched to her class in the middle of the year, so I didn't know her rules. She then tried talking to me, but I didn't hear her, and I knew she didn't, so she reported me to the office, and had a whole discussion with my mom where her first language isn't English but still knows, about how I shouldn't have been wearing earbuds. She tried playing the victim, and I then exposed her of something else, and the victim's sad face is gone instantly and she's mad. I talk my way out of not getting detention, and she gets warned for not dealing with it properly. Went to Catholic school and actually was taught by nuns. A lot of them were just meh or downright unpleasant, but there was one I liked. I was just a kid about 10 years I think, when I confided in her that I was being abused. She listened to me and seemed concerned but understanding. I was very upset, so she went to get me a glass of water and called my mother in one go. When my mother arrived I was scolded for not respecting my parents' something commandments, and we had a nice long talk about how difficult it was for my mom to raise a horrible child like me. Pet teacher. I went to a Catholic school for age kids and was bullied till 7th grade. I had a hard time making friends, and this woman told me it was because I wasn't trying hard enough, and I believed her. The school also overvalued sports, which I hated, since I'm not very good with physical activities. They had a sort of Olympics games which happened to be 30% of your grade. Guess who failed pay every single time? I'm on the second year of high school now, 11th grade, studying at another school, with friends that I love very much, and acceptable pay grades. I'm dyslexic and take my tests in a separate location as compensation. In my thermodynamics class, my teacher gave a few hints to the class while they were taking the test, ones not provided to me, and I wasn't very happy about that. When I brought it up to her, she said, "That's what you get for taking your test in a separate location." I cold made a bigger deal about it, but it would just hurt me in the class if I had. Safe to say, don't play games with her anymore. My class teacher in 7th grade. She was that kind of person who is freaking out when you can see a glimpse of face in their makeup. Had only really expensive clothes, and talked with the girls in my class, which were the same way as her, about beauty stuff. I, female trainer in a martial arts club, had absolutely no interest in beauty and couldn't afford expensive clothes. So she started bullying me, and the rest of the class went with her. I'm so glad I'm out of this school. My 10th grade teacher. She was the worst, since she didn't do a good job at teaching the students. Everyone was really lost during discussions lectures. Plus, the most infuriating thing was that there was an essay part on every single math exam that we had. She would even mark it wrong if you used wrong grammar or wrong spellings, or just because she couldn't understand your handwriting. My physics teacher in junior high school. She asked me to lend her a pen for the rest of the day and said that she would give it back to me, and as a joke I said that she had to raise my grade because I lent her my pen. She actually thought I was serious, so she got angry and she didn't return my pen, and also she gave me a far worse grade than before. As a teacher, I'd say my HS chemical physics teacher. In chemical he actually set a girl on fire and kept his job for the next year when I got stuck with him for physics. Or the history teacher that I swear was only employed because he was a decent football coach. The man couldn't physically say the word grenade, it was always a hand bomb. Mrs. Nichols, 10th grade. She had to have been at least 80. So boring. And had this affectation where every few seconds she'd say very distracting. Half the class failed. I had to repeat the first semester of English the next year because of her, and I was considered to be a very good student. An old alcoholic who was too senior to fire. He wasn't mean or crazy, but they allowed him to teach subjects he had no business teaching, and I think some really talented students never actualized their talents because this rosy-cheeked old codger got bounced around elective classes instead of sent to rehab. There was this teacher who had a problem with my existence, don't know why. He used to take me to the principal almost every day, even if didn't do anything wrong, and the worst part, he used to cry in front of the principal. He sounds like a weakling if he had to cry to his boss. My maths teacher, she just hates me and my friends. In my maths class, half the class believes the maths teacher picks on them and hates them to bits, but in reality they're the ones mucking around. In 2nd grade I had a teacher who threatened us with his pocket knife and would grab us by our necks when he got mad. Also let a kid run into a window and cut his hands open. Good times. Not mine, but I had a friend who had a college professor who one time graded papers by throwing them down steps and grading them best to worst, but hoss of a paper made it the farthest down the steps. My art teacher treated me different because I was fat. She's not the first one, but the worst one. I had several who used to bully me because they had zero patience for a special needs kid. My maths teacher told me the reason I was so skinny was because I starved myself. It teachers shaking their heads.